At 12 o'clock, we got South Carolina, who's 7-4, trailing number 8 Clemson, who's 10-1. Clemson favored by 14.5 points on ABC. And Clemson, by the way, was the biggest winner last week. You're talking about a weekend where we didn't think it was going to be a lot happen, and almost everything collapsed in our faces. TCU almost lost to Baylor. Illinois almost lost to Michigan. Michigan almost lost to Illinois. Georgia almost lost to Kentucky. Ohio State almost lost to Maryland. It's not even the end of it. There was a lot of upsets last week as well that knocked out teams from playoff contention. USC was almost upset by UCLA. Almost every team that is vying for a playoff spot was almost upset last weekend. Do you want to know who's the exception is? The answer is Clemson. Clemson is the only team that handled their business. Now, to be fair, they were playing Miami, a much worse team than any of the teams I just listed. Much worse than Baylor, much worse than Illinois, much worse than Maryland, and much is considerably worse than Kentucky. Like all the teams I just listed, Miami is by far the worst of them. But Clemson didn't struggle. It was by far the winner of last weekend because they were one of the only playoff contenders that did not struggle last weekend. That is huge. South Carolina's coming off a huge upset over Tennessee that knocked them out of playoff contention. Spencer Rattler had the game of his life, and now he's at 210 to 314, thrown for 2,420 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Marshawn Lloyd on the ground is at 100 carries for 556 yards and 9 touchdowns. Antoine Wells Jr. has had 54 catches for 767 yards and 4 touchdowns. DJU has gone 219 to 335, thrown for 2,412 yards, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Will Shipley on the ground has had 171 carries for 960 yards and 13 touchdowns, and Antonio Williams has had 48 catches for 512 yards and 3 touchdowns. Clemson leads the series all time, 72-42. Last 7 games have gone to Clemson from 2014 to 2021. 2013 was the last time South Carolina won. 2012 was the last time they won in Death Valley. Remember, Clemson has won 40 straight games in Death Valley. Can that streak come to an end here, right? This is a South Carolina team coming off a huge upset against a good team, good Tennessee team. I was a drubbing that they produced at home. But can South Carolina come back from that and produce an even better win? That would be crazy, but it's possible. If you're a South Carolina Gamecocks fan, this would be the piece de resistance of a season that was very, very good. And probably, if you win this game, it's going to be 8-4 season. A crazy good season for a Gamecock fan. It's going to be interesting, though. Remember, Clemson, you lose this game, you're out of the playoff picture. You're far out of it, right? Because right now, your only thing that you can say is one-loss conference champ. That is your selling point to make the playoffs. I still think Clemson is the only team on this list of these 6 teams left alive that doesn't control their own destiny. For instance, I think if every team wins out, if Georgia's the SEC champ, I'll say Michigan the Big Ten champ, TCU's the Big 12 champ. They're all undefeated. And USC and Clemson are the one-loss conference champs. Who do you think gets it? My opinion, USC gets in. They're playing a much tougher schedule in the Pac-12, and they've looked a lot more impressive against better teams. Clemson, in my opinion, is the only team that doesn't control their own destiny. They still have a good shot, though. USC has to play Notre Dame this week, a tough football team. Clemson knows that. They also have to play a really tough Oregon or UCLA team, depending on who wins this weekend. It's going to be tough for USC down the stretch. Clemson still has a great chance to make it because they do have to play probably the weakest team. I would say the weakest team that's going to be in a conference championship outside of maybe Purdue and UNC. UNC has looked weak down the stretch in the last 2 games, losing to Georgia Tech and NC State. Now, how much that's going to fire them up to maybe win a conference championship, who knows? But I think this is a great opportunity for Clemson to get a big win heading into a big conference championship they have against UNC. I think there's a good chance South Carolina also wants to back up a great performance they had last weekend with an even better performance here today. I think it's going to be a really interesting game. Give me Clemson to win, but South Carolina to cover the 14.5 point spread.